Welcome everyone to the Canarian International Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Mossy and I am an alcoholic.
And my name is Mick and I am also serving as secretary today. Please join us in a moment's silence to remember what the still suffering alcoholic inside and outside this meeting.
And
Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is an honest desire to stop drinking. AA has no dues or fees. It is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety.
right, chat is now disabled until the end of the meeting. If you have any issues with security, just let one of the co-hosts know. This is an old-timers meeting, and our speaker today is all the way from Honolulu. Kelly, she's a wonderful lady, great attitude, lovely smile. You got 45 minutes, Kelly, and I'm looking forward to your story. You are unmuted.
Aloha kako, and my name is Kelly, and I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. And thank you, Mossy, for the invitation. Canaries is one of my favorite meetings to attend. I know we had a moment of silence, but I'd like to have a moment of silence to do with as you wish. But I'm going to pray for the unborn alcoholic that AA is preserved for when their time comes and they need help. So I'd like to start by saying that I love AA, I love God, and I love being sober. And I can't stress that enough. Those are three tenets that I share with myself on a daily basis to reaffirm that this is the path that I've chosen and this is the path that I continue to choose on a daily basis as my reprieve to myself for the torment and the torture that I allowed alcoholism to wreak in my life. I don't believe recovery is found in drunkalog. I believe recovery is found in a general, more generalized display of experience, strength, and hope. And I don't know what will come out of my mouth. I'm one who never remembers a word I say when I'm done sharing, and I hope that my message is received by whoever is meant to receive it, and whatever the message that's meant to be delivered today will be through my higher power speaking through me and through my lived experience in Alcoholics Anonymous and in the throes of my alcoholism. Again, my thoughts. I can honestly say that I don't recall ever not drinking. I grew up in a home with 4 older brothers and no sisters. And I was able to assess from my peers that we were not as well off as others. And it didn't seem to bother me. I wasn't one to be jealous or envious. I wasn't one to come home and cry to my parents. I just knew don't ask, because the answer was going to be no. I was watching and observing, my environment. And I had learned those lessons because I watched my brothers be told no countless times. So when it came time, as I was maturing, the answer was just don't even ask, Kelly. So I come from a very long line of genetically predisposed alcoholism. I am 50% Irish and I am 50% Comanche, Native American, First Nation. My Comanche is on my paternal side, and my Irish roots are very deep on my mother's side. And it's funny, I shared with somebody yesterday, the name Comanche, Native American name, it means enemy of all, of everyone. And I have to say, I was raised with that mentality. It was us against them, our family against the world. And ironically enough, I'm going to break my own anonymity here. We were the Joneses. It was an adoptive name. And, you know, to hear people keeping up with the Joneses, we sort of laughed a lot. What are you keeping up with? We had nothing. We had each other. We had a very false idea and sense of loyalty to family, so false and warped that it damaged my ability to have relationships outside of that nuclear family. And I didn't know how to relate to other human beings outside of my nuclear family. And quite frankly, I was incapable of affording anyone, anytime, any place, just common decency or respect. It was self-preservation at all costs in our house, and what went on in that house stayed in that house. Those were secrets that we would carry to the grave. I grew up with a deep resentment for authority, because we all were in our own different stages of our alcoholism. And I grew up with heavy police presence coming in and out of my house at all hours of the night, dragging somebody out in handcuffs, and all of the fear that's surrounded in that as a young child. And then when it came my turn, it was comfortable. I didn't even bat an eyelash. It was almost like it was expected. So things for me changed. I was raised with a religion. I like to say that I'm a CCIRA. I'm a Comanche Catholic Irish recovering alcoholic. That tells you the spiritual and religious tenets that I carried, and attitudes and beliefs that I carried with me until I came into the halls of AA. By the time I had come into the halls of AA, my alcoholism had me doing spiritual gymnastics that were not comfortable, that were literally causing me to believe that I was insane. I was one that came into AA and saw the word insanity and didn't balk. I knew that I was insane. I knew my thinking wasn't normal compared to other human beings. I like to say that my brand of alcoholism, it executed immense coercion tactics on me. What do I mean by that? It was coercive, and I wasn't equipped emotionally, spiritually, or physically to handle my brand of alcoholism, quite frankly. I picked up a drink at a very, very young age, intentionally at a young age. I had my first felony arrest at the age of 13 and a half. And, it wasn't a shock to me. But what was a shock to me was when my parents argued with the police in my hometown that they didn't want me, that they could keep me. They were not coming to bail me out. And what was very confusing was, why am I so bad? You bailed out my brothers countless times. What's so wrong with Kelly that you won't help me? My own family didn't want me. And that's what it felt like sitting in that jail cell the very first time. And my alcoholism, which was already well underway, all those attitudes and isms that we carry, immediately flipped a switch. Well, I'll show you. I don't need anybody. So I understand and had come to know immediately the isolation and the loneliness that we read about in the big book. It took many years to recognize and learn and completely understand wholeheartedly that I'm not that person. I don't want to be ostracized from humanity. I love loving. I have the capacity to love. I have the capacity to receive love. I didn't know that at that young, ripe age of 13 and a half. And it was because I was under perpetual inebriation. The pain hurt so bad that I don't believe I saw another sober day until I came into the halls of AA at 19 and a half years old. This is a good stretch of time there, 13 and a half to 19 and a half. And the amount of wreckage and damage that racked up in that time is just astronomical. It blows my mind to think so much damage and harm that I could cause to my community, to my family, to everyone and anyone that was put in my path that saw someone in utter dire straits, that literally was just incapable of recognizing help when it was right in front of her. I went on to have 30 arrests in 3 different states up and down the East Coast. I had bench warrants out for my arrest in every single one of those states by the time I was 19 and a half. I had never, ever answered for anything. I had stood in front of many a judge in many a courtroom who tried to direct me to the halls of AA, and I was obstinately defiant. When I read that word in the big book, oh, I know obstinately defiance, because I was the walking epitome of it. I had an example. I had assaulted a girl to the point where she was viciously harmed, and the girl had done nothing to me. That young lady and her family ended up taking out a lawsuit against my mom and my dad. And what did it do, right? AA helped me to explore all of these things. Well, it threatened my family's financial stability. So more anger, more angst. And I couldn't see where I was wrong. In open court, I told the young lady's mom in open court in front of a judge that she's lucky that it wasn't her, because I probably would have killed her. If that's not a good example of self-will run riot, I'm not quite sure what is. I had an arrogance and a false pride and a cockiness that I didn't even understand myself. And I would have moments of clarity in between, like say I woke up in a jail cell and it's just me, and I know how I behaved. You know, I was the girl that was banging her head off the plexiglass and making the cops that were babysitting me, making their night shift a living hell. I had no regard. I had no respect. I just had nothing. I would have those moments of clarity, and what would come in was just overwhelming shame, because something inside me knew that I wasn't supposed to be like this, that it was supposed to be different. I didn't understand how or what or how, how it was supposed to be different. I just knew that it wasn't supposed to turn out like this. I suffered countless trips to the emergency room to have my stomach pulped for alcohol poisoning. I used other condiments as well, and I only used other condiments to level me out enough with the intention so I could drink more. Why do I say that? Because when I had to look at my alcoholism and look at the intention behind my drinking, the how, the what, the when, I drank happy, mad, sad, or glad. It did not matter what I drank, how I drank, where I drank, who I drank with. It's what happened to me when I drank. And I'm the first person to say that if I were to put a drink in my body, I absolutely belong in a cage. And I don't fool myself. I don't minimize the brutality of my alcoholism that's unleashed on my community or on myself, most importantly. I started to develop a deep, deep self-loathing and a hatred for self. I had always believed in God. I was raised religious and spiritual. So I had this conflicting spirituality. My mother, was staunch Irish Catholic, raising us kids. And I went all the way to my first confirmation, and I refused to sign the pledge because I thought everyone was hypocrites. I knew I couldn't swear off alcohol. My father was raising us that we don't need a building. I don't need to sit in a pew to talk to God. So I would have a dialogue with God, but from the time I was 13 to 16 to 19 and a half, that dialogue changed quite a bit. I asked why a lot. I asked why, how come, why does it have to be so hard? Why is my life like this? I think I'm not a bad person, and I don't understand why I'm behaving like this and why I'm hurting people. And why does it feel so alone? Why does it feel so heavy? And when is it going to stop? And those were my pleas for help. Those were my prayers in the throes of my alcoholism. And it felt as if it was just one more life trial after another. I ended up attracted really bad entities into my life. And I had to learn later in treatment that I wanted to end my life, and I was incapable of doing it consciously. So I started to attract people in hopes that they might do it for me. And when I think about that part of my life, I have so much empathy for that young girl, because to be that young and to already want to tap out of this existence, this God-given gift of life, you know, the weight was just unbearable. I couldn't see a way out. I couldn't see anything other than what I had known. My reality was pretty harsh. And, you know, I ended up in an extremely abusive relationship, but I didn't see it as being abusive because I was someone who fought back. I thought I met my level of crazy. A fellow alcoholic who had already done prison time, and you know, we were like Bonnie and Clyde. So I thought we were invincible together. My brothers, you know, were intimidated by him, so it was the one relationship where they couldn't intervene to try to save their sister, and that relationship ended up resulting in I was stabbed. And I was stabbed in sobriety. That's the irony. So how did I, like, what happened, right? What changed? What happened at 19 and a half? So they say that your liver, your lover, or the law tends to bring us into the halls of AA. And for me, not a single one of them did. Okay, what that means is I knew very early you can't scare a drunk, because you certainly couldn't scare me. I had no fear of loss. I had no respect for death. And I hadn't really acquired anything to have lost it. And I had no ambition to do so either. So what happened? What brought Kelly to seek recovery, to seek help, right? To go from being such a strong warrior, right? I'm running around with my tomahawk. I'm fighting the world. I got a spear. And I'm going to go down to the very last breath, right? Well, it was just me and alcohol, and I was in a little hotel room, and I had every intention of trying to drink myself to death. Like I said, I had known alcohol poisoning, so I know it was possible. Maybe I just didn't do it right, and that was my intention. It was, I thought I could finish the job alone, and when I came to in that hotel room, quite frankly, it was just me and empty bottles, and I didn't know what to do. And once again, I turned to God with the same pleas and the same cries. How much more pain does one person have to take? Will you please take me home? In the old days in hotel rooms in the United States, when you open the drawer, they always had a Bible and a big old fat telephone book. And that's exactly what I did. I opened that drawer, I dismissed the Bible, and I heard all those judges, countless judges, and probation offices and parole offices and counselors telling me AA, AA, AA. I opened that telephone book and I saw AA, AAA. I don't even know what other kind of A's. I couldn't remember which one it was because my brain was so scrambled and I was so emotional. And I was afraid for the first time in my life, is what I was feeling. I was absolutely afraid. And I felt fear for the first time because I didn't know what else to do. And I picked up that phone and I called AA Intergroup. I don't know where that number rang to in Massachusetts, but there was a woman on the other end of that phone. And that speaks to the service of this program, right? The responsibility statement in AA, that when the hand, right, reaches out, I always want the hand of AA to be there, right? And I'll be forever grateful that someone was manning the phones that day, because she sat on the phone with me and just asked me some questions, and we talked, and she made me make her a promise. She gave me a phone number to call, and she made me promise her that I would call her back as soon as I got off the phone with the other people. And I had never been to treatment. I had never heard of treatment. I knew jail cells and I knew handcuffs. And I called and they told me that they didn't have a bed for me. And I felt even more helpless because it was the first time in my life that I was seeking help. And now I'm being told that I can't have it. And I called that woman back at the AA intergroup, and she stayed on the phone with me. And that treatment center told me to call back the next morning at 9 o'clock. And I did that for 3 days. And I stayed on the phone with that woman each day. And on the third day, the treatment facility told me that they had a bed for me. And I don't remember the exact feeling. I just knew that I better get there. I better find a way to get there. One thing I know about alcoholics, for the most part, is we're like MacGyver. We're resilient, we're resourceful, we survive, we can dig ourselves out of holes that other people couldn't even imagine. And when I went to that treatment facility, they put me in it's a regular hospital, full-fledged hospital, and they took me in through the emergency room and they put me up into a bed, and then I had to see a doctor. And I had already had paddles on my chest at age 18 from other condiments, and they ran a bunch of tests, and he told me that I needed to be medically detoxed. And it took me 11 days to be detoxed, to the point where they said I could be discharged. I had done some damage to my liver, I had done some damage to my heart, and of course my brain and my spirit was broken and shattered. And I couldn't imagine walking out of that hospital, because I was just going to go back to more of the same. And something inside me was screaming so loud, just so loud, that I just didn't want it. And I just don't know how to break free from it. And I had an Irish nurse who would come in my room every night during those 11 days, and she would plant little seeds, and she'd give me little suggestions. And then she prepared me for my discharge date. And she said, they're going to ask you if you want to stay for a longer term treatment. And she said, it's a 30-day program. I'm just saying, you might want to consider it. So they did. She was the first person that I felt had been honest, because what she said happened. She was true to her word, and they did ask me. And I jumped at the chance out of fear. That began my introduction into AA for the first time. And I believe in divine intervention today. People are placed in my path at different times for different reasons and different seasons. And my early sobriety, it was nothing but that. It was a train of people that were put in my path that were instrumental, pivotal in my early recovery. I am absolutely a member of the No Matter What Club. I do not know what it is to have relapsed, because I was gifted with the tremendous gift of desperation. And I was told and taught that I'm going to have to fight really hard to keep my seat here. There's a line of people behind me that want it. I was raised on the 3rd edition of the Big Book. And I was told in that treatment center that if I just put my tomahawk down and stopped fighting alcohol, that I wouldn't get beat. I had a really hard time with the word surrender at first. It was pointed out to me that the first 60 pages of the Big Book are dedicated to the first 3 steps of this program. That's almost half the Big Book. So I better pay attention and do the work and do it rigorously honest, and I might just stand a chance. I was paired up with a counselor in that treatment facility who happened to be another recovering alcoholic himself. And he was a low bottom drunk that had pulled himself up out of the gutters, and he had lost his family just as I had. And he, at that point in his life, at 20-something years of sobriety, still had not earned the graces back of his family. And he posed that as a potential reality for me. We don't do this, right, with expectation. We don't come into AA and have expectation. I should have one expectation, that these steps in this program promise to restore me to sanity. I don't know anywhere in the steps where it says the word sobriety. It doesn't. I knew I was insane, like I said, and I wanted nothing more for my mind to slow down, my heart to lift, so I could take a breath. That's all I was seeking. I guess I came to understand what I was looking for was peace. I had never known peace. When I read it in the big book, we will come to know peace. I didn't know what that was, but it sounded really nice. And I remember in early sobriety praying just for that. Please, God, grant me peace. I saw it in other people in AA. I saw these 12 steps carved out in the lives of other people right in front of me in the flesh. And it felt so unattainable. It felt like, the turmoil and the baggage was just never going to repair itself, that my brain would never calm down enough to understand, to make sense of this program. That alcoholic was the most important person in my life. His name was Harry H., and he helped countless alcoholics in his lifetime of sobriety. He was the first person that I was able to cry with. And when I cried for the first time, it felt like it was never going to stop. And he didn't hand me a tissue. And then afterwards, I said, why didn't you give me a tissue? What kind of a gentleman are you? And he says, Kelly, he says, one teardrop can carry months and years of pain. And he says, and if I gave you a tissue, he says, you would have had reservations. You would have held something back. So I experienced a complete bearing of my soul and the comfort and the love and the compassion and the empathy of only as it can occur from one alcoholic to another. Like I said, all the judges, all the courts, everybody, that could never have happened because they just didn't understand. They hadn't lived it. They didn't have real-time experience with alcoholism. It's how this program works. It's what binds us together, what creates these bonds. Why are we drawn to each other from all different walks of life, different titles, different professions? There's no uniqueness in the halls of AA. We have to, when we come through the threshold and walk into a meeting, we leave our titles at the door. And that's what I like, is that no one person, no one alcoholic in recovery is better than another. We're all simply just trying to walk each other home. And how do we do that? We have these amazing tools to help us and guide us. And we have sponsorship, and we have alcoholics working with other alcoholics out of sincere compassion and empathy for one another. I know today that my past has been completely discharged, that restitution has been paid in the form of living amends, in the form of making, in-person amends to people that I had harmed. When I was 18 years old and we were all supposed to be graduating from high school and I didn't, I had physically harmed two women in a head-on collision, and I had to answer for all of those things in early sobriety in front of a judge. And it was very humbling. I came to know humility through humiliation and accountability. And had I not had the beginnings of early recovery and some survival suggestions and the fellowship behind me, I would not have been able to navigate any of that. I probably would have ran one more time from facing the music. Rigorous honesty with self, right? I know that those things that I did, my behaviors when I'm under the influence, or I don't do those things when I'm not under the influence. It's just that simple. But I needed someone to tell me, this isn't a moral failing. I didn't do those things because I'm a bad person. I didn't do those things because God didn't like Kelly or the world was against me. I have a disease, and I have the only disease known to mankind that tells me constantly I don't have one. It's a very hard place to navigate in early sobriety, right? That temptation that it'll be different this time. You're in so much pain and you don't have to be, just pick it up, right? It's constantly tempting and taunting us at every turn in early sobriety. But what I'm here to say is that the further we get into the steps and the further healing that can occur and the wounds that we, sew up and stitch up and get right with God, and have a different understanding of the God that I thought I knew. Because once we do those things, right, there is a freedom, and it's promised me. And I just celebrated 35 years of sobriety on February 11th. And I feel like I'm an absolute beginner. I truly feel that way in AA. It's not because people told me to remain teachable. I am teachable today. There's the difference. This major transformation has occurred in my life, where I'm genuinely curious of my fellow human beings, not just in the halls of AA. I have a compassion today for learning other people's lived experience, and I've come to recognize that we're all just walking each other home, if that makes any sense to anybody, when all is said and done. My Native American beliefs, were very deep. This is all temporary, this whole thing, right? And I get one chance at this lifetime, and there's something called legacy. Well, when I was 16 years old, I was told that I could never conceive a child. No wonder. I had all these massive things that were just fueling my alcoholism, right? We talk about causes, and if I didn't take time to explore the causes, I wouldn't know contented sobriety today. Contented sobriety, right? I come to a neutrality, a place of neutrality in relationship with alcohol. I can go anywhere, anytime. And it's just not a thought today. If you had told me that years ago, I wouldn't have believed you. I wouldn't have trusted you that it was humanly possible. It's been a transformation from war to peace. I actually have come to know moments of peace. I don't live in a perpetual state of peacefulness. I know that I need to keep coming and keep working and keep doing the legwork. And I may just, what does it say? Where we'll be amazed before we're halfway through. Well, I still have a lot of living left to do. I hear people in AA say that, the AA gave them a second chance at life. And I've come to reword that a little different through my experience. Because the 9th step promises tell me that I will not regret the past, and I will not shut the door on it. It's my greatest teacher. When I look at my past, it helps me understand who I was and who I don't want to be. And that is how I can lay the template for who I'm striving to become, by figuring out who I was not in the eyes of God. So I don't believe that it's a second chance, because that's almost like drawing a line in the sand and saying that never happened, and now I'm going to go on this path. I believe that I get a chance at a second life, and both are equally as important as an alcoholic. I believe that every single moment that I've lived up into this very moment is God-given. The breath in my chest. I've been restored to a place of valuing life, and having an utter respect for alcohol. I had to come to a place, instead of surrendering to alcohol itself, for me, for this warrior, I could not admit defeat to something this big. I recognized and gave it all the power. I know what it did to me. I know what it's capable of doing to me, but I struggled with that word, surrender and defeat. And it was posed to me, how about you surrender to help, Kelly? How about you concede that alcohol is your most worthiest opponent, right? My most worthiest opponent, and it deserves the respect of a good warrior. And that worked for me. So I have a healthy respect for alcohol. I'm in a place of neutrality with it. And I can't tell you what day that happened. It wasn't, like a light bulb went off or anything. But today, for me, I think some of the greatest rewards of staying on this path of recovery and really applying the principles of this program, because there are 12, as best as I can, to the best of my ability, in all of my affairs, in and out of AA. It's amazing to think that I have built I've been welcomed into a tribe, a community where I'm valued, where I'm loved, where I'm appreciated, where I receive compliments, and I'm welcome to be of service, and that I still have the capacity to be of service. AA promised me that I would be restored, right, to the world once more. And that's exactly what this life of recovery laid out in the 12 steps has granted me. I have been restored to the world that I was completely ostracized from. I've been able to repair some relationships through recovery. My parents eventually found AA on their own path and in their own time after me. And I had that opportunity to nurture and grow those relationships with an understanding and a spiritual foundation from the perfect triangle. My mother, my father, myself, and each one of us had a spiritual foundation. So a lot of healing was able to occur. And, I lost my father when I was 17 years sober. And it was that moment that we're warned about, right? Be on guard for the unguarded moment, right? The only thing that'll keep me away from a drink or a drug is me and my higher power, my spiritual fitness, and my relationship to God. And it was that very moment, because I couldn't even breathe, when I held his hand as he took his last breath, sober breath. And something inside of me whispered, "You're going to be okay." And I know exactly what that was today. It's my higher power touching me with the grace to know and trust that all of this work, it will succeed. I will succeed if I want it bad enough. It's been a very long journey, the road of recovery. Would I do it again? I would do it again in a second, in a heartbeat. I'm not willing to trade this life and what's to come for the life that I know that I lived before, because I'm guaranteed that I will always, AA tells us, we'll gladly refund your misery, right? And I believe it, because I've been around the halls long enough, and I hear people come back, and I know exactly what's waiting for me. And I can look at an ounce of alcohol and know there's nothing left in it for me. It's not a cure. It's not going to help one iota. Being so young in sobriety, when I came in, I believed that it was the worst sentence that I could ever be handed. How was I going to navigate this long life ahead of me if I was lucky enough to live long enough without anesthetizing, right? You want me to live raw and visceral and feel every feeling of every moment of every day? Who does that? How is that possible? Well, I stand on the shoulder of giants. I was told to stick with the winners. And when I came into AA, I was very young back in the 90s. We didn't see what we see today with a lot of the dual addiction and people coming in at much earlier and getting to the halls in a quicker manner. I was surrounded with, older people who had many years of experience staying sober and living sober and building a sober life. So I had something to emulate. I had something to strive for. And when I asked, they would help and guide me with some of my biggest challenges, my biggest hurdles that I had to overcome. I was never one to hang out with my peers in AA, coming in like with the class of 1990 and staying with the newcomers. No, because I knew that wasn't where I was going to find recovery. They were going to teach me how to drink again, or if they went out, I would, be at risk of going out with them. my advice to any newcomer is to find someone that you can connect with on a human level, an emotional level, not necessarily the drunk-a-log level. It doesn't matter. Like I said, your experience and your story is completely different than mine. All of our stories will be completely different. And it's about connecting on a more human level, I believe, one alcoholic to another, and really trusting and knowing that we're not alone, that we're not as isolated as this disease wants us to be. AA promised me that it could arrest this disease of alcoholism. And I knew the word arrest. I was very comfortable with arrest, but I didn't understand the application of it in relationship to alcoholism. Today I can say that when I get up in the morning and I open my eyes and I connect with my higher power, I practice a meditation today because it's in the steps. It tells me that if that's one more tool that I should do that will help this journey, this recovery, and grant me another opportunity to stay sober. So I meditate, and it was suggested to me because I had such the big ego, and the shattering of the ego has to occur, right? If this is to take hold and have any weight and levity to it, and some quality and contentment. So it was suggested to me that I would possibly practice meditating in the shower in my birthday suit, where I'm my most vulnerable, when I'm naked before God, my creator. And that's worked for me. I take a shower every day. I bathe every day. So I use that time to set my intentions, to hear the word, the guidance of whatever plan, whatever things I've been offering up in prayer. And the answers come slowly. Sometimes they come like a massive epiphany. I just know the next right thing to do. If I calm the mind, put the ego aside, and allow time and space for those prayers to actually be answered. I never stilled myself enough to hear the answers. My sponsor knew enough when it was time for me to do my 5th step that he took me to see a priest. I didn't do my 5th step with my sponsor, as it's mentioned in the 12 and 12. And I'll be forever grateful that he did that for me. And he tricked me. I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared on my terms, on my time. I felt like I was going to crumble under the weight of it. And this massive confession, right? And I had some things that I thought that I was going to carry to the grave with me. And he knocked on the rectory door and he looked at me, and I was shaking my head. Please don't make me do this. Please don't make me do this. And the priest answered, and I went into the parlor with him, and he took his collar off. He set it on the table. He lit up a cigarette. And then he shared with me, he was a recovering alcoholic himself. And that's exactly what I needed. I needed to see the human side and separate the religion from the spirituality of this program. And to recognize that it wasn't a moral failing on my part, that I wasn't a bad person doing evil things, that I was capable of being forgiven, right? And how do I do that? I don't seek your forgiveness first, right? That's how it was for me. I had so much shame inside that if I stood a chance, I would have to come to an intrinsic understanding that I am forgiven, as long as I don't continue to do the same things. That's the definition of sanity, right? So I have that decision to make every single day, sometimes every moment of my day. It depends upon the life circumstance that I'm trying to navigate, and the further I am away from a drink, the closer I am in connection to my higher power. And I'm also warned that the further I am from my last drink, the closer I am to it. So it's a balancing. It's a tight wire that I walk as an alcoholic. I don't allow myself to lie to myself today. Right? Rigorous honesty is what it takes. I choose to live a much more considered life in service to others. In AA, I've known great success. However anyone wants to term that, and my success is termed, is measured by the healing that's occurred in my spirit, my mind, and my body. And I know a freedom today that AA promised me, and I'll do whatever it takes to hold on to that freedom. If you're new and you're finding your way into the halls of AA, it was told to me that the ending of a thing is better than the beginning. And I think I'm going to hang around for the ending. So thank you for having me. And like I said, I love AA, I love being sober, and I love God. Mahalo.
Thank you, Kelly. Right from the start, I got you. You had, I don't take notes, and it surprises me what comes out of my mouth as much as it does everybody else, you know. And I love being sober. I absolutely love being sober. I hate the disease of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's the one big, huge resentment that I have, because I hate what it does to people. I hate what it does to families. But I do love what recovery does for families, and I love what it does for what it's done for me and my family, especially. The life I have today because of this fellowship is amazing. I've been supported through my darkest hours. And I've had the best days of my life here. And I've laughed, and I've laughed, and I made a few quid, and I traveled, and I met amazing people, and then things turned sour, and I didn't have to pick up a drink. I have I celebrated 35 years last year as well. And I got a phone call the other day that just blew my mind all over again. I'm heading over to Akron after the convention next year. And I got a phone call from a lady that I don't know to say, "Oh, you're coming over to Akron? I'd love to bring you to a meeting." Where else do you get, someone to bring you up and say, "I'll pick you up, I'll bring you to meeting, I'll show you around," that you don't know? It just took the wind out of my sail, to be quite honest with you. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I absolutely love it. That's it from me, guys. I'll hand it over to Mick the Ferret.
Thanks, Mossy. I'm Mick, and I am an alcoholic, of course. Wouldn't be on it, would I? Kelly, I identified with lots of your story, quiet dog. And, we had the police in and out of our house. I used to be called the black sheep of the family, and I couldn't, if anything was laying about, I couldn't leave it there. I was a thief, liar, and a cheat as a child. And I lived uncomfortable life. We lived in a house of secrets, and lies, and that's how I grew up. And I took a drink, and it changed my life. I felt comfortable with life for the first time ever, but it didn't stay like that, it got so it hurt other people. You shared also about people passing on in your sobriety. I lost my mother and father, all my brothers, and my sister. That's the whole family in sobriety. But I don't need to take a drink. I've made my amends, because I was there for them. Not saying sorry, how I was as a child, but how I kept in touch with them. I kept them close to me. If they needed me, I was there. And that's what was given to me through Alcoholics Anonymous, that I became responsible. I lost my wife, my soulmate, but I didn't need to take a drink because we talked about it when she was dying, talked about things, you know, and that's because of Al-Anon, AA, you know. And my children know who I am, what I am, and where I came from, because I don't hide secrets from them. And it's also my grandchildren, all through this fellowship, you know. I'm an honest person today, mostly. I do get dishonest in the head sometimes, but I know what it is today, you know. What a gift to be given, eh? What a gift. We put down the bottle and we get such a wonderful life to live. That's it. Thank you again, Kelly. Right.
So I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. Everyone doing service, and you as well, Kelly, for joining us. I'm glad we have Tata Hawaii with us here for the last few weeks. It's been an amazing journey meeting you and everything. So back to the script. Where's the script on?
We have come to the end of sharing part of the meeting, and Kathleen's going to read the promises.
My name is Kathleen and I'm an alcoholic. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurities will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them.
Thank you, Kathleen. And just a reminder, guys, that this meeting is on every Saturday at 6 o'clock. We have a regular meeting is on every morning at 8:30 to 9:30. We have a lunchtime meeting every Sunday, Step 11 meditation meeting, Experience, Strength and Hope at 7:30 on Thursdays. And guys, as if that wasn't enough for you, on the 14th of March, we'll be 5 years old. So we're having a reflections or something meeting at 7 o'clock in the evening. When I say reflections, it's not daily reflections, it's reflections on this group, the meeting. We used to have Funny Fridays for those of you that were with us long enough. There might be a bit of Funny Friday put in there. There'll be a few laughs and a few stories, and we'll see what happens. It'll be organized chaos. And we use the same meeting code for all the meetings. There you go.
Right. Stick around for the fellowship after the meeting. If you want to use the breakout room after the meeting, please let the host know, which is Mossy.
Yellow card.
Thank everybody for doing service. Catherine for the promises. Oh, she's not here, is she? Jane for the preamble, and Sabina for being a wonderful timer.
Thanks, everyone. And the yellow card, who you see here?
What you hear here,
When you leave here,
let it stay here. For the
there
sake.
you go now, folks, another successful meeting. And Kelly, will you lead us out with the serenity prayer? And thanks again so much for joining us. You've done a fantastic job. And the message has been carried.
Mahalo keokua. So still Kelly, still a grateful recovering alcoholic, and who hangs the stars and keeps us out of bars. God, grant us the serenity to accept the change, the courage to change the things we can,
and the wisdom to know the difference.
Thy will, not mine, be
Thy
done.
will be done.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you. God bless you.
Mahalo. Thank you guys. Humbling experience.